Divine detours, why your purpose finds you when you're not looking. Have you ever noticed how the most important moments in life rarely announce themselves? They sneak up on you, disguised as ordinary Tuesdays, disappointments, or what feels like the universe playing a cosmic joke at your expense. I recently had the privilege of sitting down with Keturah Johnson, a visionary whose work has transformed how Black women approach purpose, entrepreneurship, and self worth. Keturah isn't just a thought leader, she's a revolution in human form. Her methodologies have helped thousands of women reclaim their divine birthright and step into purposes they once thought impossible. What struck me most wasn't just her accomplishments, though they're remarkable, but how she articulates the profound truth that our greatest breakthroughs often arrive through what appear to be life's greatest detours. The moment you think you failed, Keturah shared, leaning forward with intensity in her eyes, is often the exact moment God is repositioning you for something beyond your imagination. That hit me right in the chest. Because let's be honest, how many of us are walking around with dreams we've quietly shelved, purposes we've negotiated away, callings we've convinced ourselves were just impractical fantasies? Too many of us are living someone else's version of our lives. We're chasing promotions at companies that don't value us, pursuing degrees in fields that don't light us up, building businesses that look impressive on Instagram, but leave us empty inside. And if I'm being completely honest with you, I've been there too. And why? Because somewhere along the way, we absorb the dangerous idea that purpose is something you manufacture through sheer force of will rather than something you discover by surrendering to a higher plan. The data tells us something fascinating is happening, particularly among Black women. Despite facing some of the most significant structural barriers in American society, Black women are now leading one of the most dynamic entrepreneurial movements in our country's history. But here's what the statistics don't capture. Behind each of these businesses is often a story of divine redirection, a moment when everything seemed to fall apart, only to reveal the blueprint for something far more aligned with their true calling. One entrepreneur, Keturah highlighted, began her journey after being passed over for promotion 7 times at a company where she'd given a decade of her life. 7 times. Can you imagine showing up day after day, excellence upon excellence, only to watch less qualified colleagues climb past you? Most people would call that a failure. She calls it the divine nudge that launched an empire. Another launched her business after being fired while on maternity leave. Let that sink in. She's nursing a newborn, hormones everywhere, sleep nowhere to be found, and suddenly, no job. What society labeled a catastrophe became the catalyst for a venture that now employs 27 people. A third found her purpose after a health crisis forced her to completely reimagine her relationship with work. Sometimes your body will tell you what your mind refuses to accept, that you're walking a path that was never meant for you. What these women share isn't just resilience, though Lord knows they have that in abundance. What they share is a profound understanding that your purpose isn't something you chase. It's something that finds you when you finally stop running from yourself, when you stop trying to fit into spaces that were never designed for your fullness, when you release the exhausting performance of being whoever others need you to be, when you surrender to the possibility that maybe, just maybe, the universe has been trying to redirect you all along. Your purpose is preordained. Keturah emphasized, with the kind of certainty that comes from having witnessed transformation after transformation. The question isn't whether you have one, it's whether you'll trust the process long enough to discover it. This isn't some abstract spiritual concept. It's practical wisdom with measurable outcomes. Consider the community of Black women entrepreneurs who, facing systemic barriers to traditional funding, created alternative networks for resource sharing. These weren't just business decisions, they were purpose decisions that transformed obstacles into opportunities for collective uplift. One woman Keturah interviewed described how being denied a bank loan, despite having perfect credit and a solid business plan, led her to create a cooperative funding model that has now helped launch over 50 Black owned businesses in her community. The very system designed to exclude her became the inspiration for a solution that's lifting others. Another shared how being the only one in her industry inspired her to create a mentorship program that has become a pipeline for diverse talent. Her isolation became the seed for others' inclusion. When you align with God first, Keturah notes, everything else follows, but rarely in the way you expected. This alignment isn't about passive waiting, it's about active surrender. It's about doing the work while releasing attachment to how that work should unfold. It's about understanding that sometimes the most productive thing you can do is get out of your own way. I'm reminded of the scripture that says, many are the plans in a person's heart, but it is the Lord's purpose that prevails. That's not a statement of limitation. It's a promise of liberation. It means you don't have to figure everything out. You don't have to force doors open. You don't have to exhaust yourself proving your worth. Your job is simply to show up authentically, to use your gifts faithfully, and to trust that the path will reveal itself one step at a time. This is particularly resonant for those of us who've spent decades prioritizing others' needs over our own. Keturah shared stories of women, especially mothers, who reached turning points where self discovery became not just desirable, but essential. One woman described how, after raising three children and supporting her husband through medical school, she found herself at 45 wondering who she was beyond her roles as wife and mother. Her journey back to herself began not with grand ambitions, but with 5 minutes of silence each morning asking, God, what did you create me for? That simple practice, creating space to listen rather than strive, eventually led her to launch a nonprofit that has transformed her community. But the transformation began within her, with the radical act of believing she was worthy of purpose beyond service to others. The greatest barrier to purpose, Keturah observes, is often not external opposition, but internal permission. We need permission to believe that our dreams matter, permission to set boundaries around our time and energy, permission to prioritize our calling without guilt or apology. And here's where it gets really interesting. When we finally grant ourselves that permission, we don't just change our own lives, we become catalysts for generational change. Leaders like Kiki Lauderdale, whom Keturah highlighted in our conversation, have documented how this ripple effect works. When one woman steps fully into her purpose, she creates a new possibility model for everyone around her. Children who watch their mothers pursue purpose with passion grow up with different expectations about what's possible for their own lives. Communities that witness one woman's transformation Begin to question limiting beliefs about what's possible for the collective. Workplaces that experience the impact of purpose driven leadership start to reimagine organizational cultures. This isn't just feel good theory, it's transformation with measurable impact. Black women entrepreneurs are now creating jobs at rates that outpace the general market. They're developing innovative business models that prioritize community benefit alongside profit. They're influencing policy changes around small business funding equity. And many of them trace their breakthrough moments not to strategic planning, but to spiritual surrender. To that moment when they finally stopped fighting against the current of their lives and started flowing with divine direction. Rock bottom became the solid foundation on which I rebuilt my life, one woman told Keturah. Only when I had nothing left to lose did I find the courage to pursue everything I was meant to become. That's the beautiful paradox at the heart of purpose. Sometimes you have to lose your way to find your way. Sometimes the detour is the destination. Sometimes the breakdown is the breakthrough. But here's the challenge. In a culture obsessed with hustle and immediate results, how do we cultivate the patience to trust this process? How do we resist the pressure to force outcomes and instead allow our purpose to unfold organically? Keturah suggests starting with a simple but profound practice: 5 minutes of honest reflection. Take 5 quiet minutes alone with no distractions and ask yourself, am I truly aligned with my God given purpose? Where am I resisting what He wants because it feels uncomfortable? Write down whatever emerges without judgment. Then commit to taking one bold step towards surrendering control, even if it scares you. Maybe that means finally leaving the job that's slowly crushing your spirit. Maybe it means investing in the business idea you've been talking about for years. Maybe it means setting a boundary with people who don't support your growth. Or maybe it simply means creating more space in your life for stillness, those precious moments when you can hear the still, small voice guiding you toward your next right step. Because here's the truth: your purpose isn't something you achieve, it's something you uncover, one act of courage at a time. So I challenge you today, right now, to stop waiting for permission to live the life you were created for. Stop postponing joy until some mythical someday when all conditions are perfect. Stop believing the lie that your detours are delays rather than divine appointments. Your purpose has been pursuing you your entire life. And it's past time for you to turn around and embrace it with open arms. The world doesn't need more people grinding themselves to dust on paths that were never meant for them. The world needs you, fully alive, deeply aligned, and courageously committed to the unique contribution only you can make. So take that first step, make that phone call, write that resignation letter, launch that business, set that boundary. Whatever your next brave move is, do it now. Not tomorrow, not next year, now. Because when you finally align with your divine purpose, when you stop fighting against the current of your life and start flowing with it, you don't just change your own story. You become part of a larger narrative of transformation that extends far beyond yourself. Your divine detour isn't a mistake, it's your miracle in disguise. And it's time to unwrap it.